Good morning everybody and welcome back to Rock Rehab RC. Today we're going to have another build video on my K10. First we're going to put in some shock mounting brackets. And then we've got these, I found them on Amazon. They're a 65 millimeter shock. They are really tall, they're the tallest ones I've found, but I don't run springs on my rig, so we're going to be taking the springs off and seeing how much more articulation these shocks give us. And then while we're at it, I went ahead and got a brass servo mount for it. Give it a little bit more weight up front, see if that helps us with climbing. But first, yesterday when we were out crawling, I ended up burning up a Traxxas servo. Surprise, surprise. Stripped the gears inside. I'll insert a picture to show you exactly what gear we ended up stripping. But our Traxxas dealer in town did not have another Traxxas servo for us. So the only way we can keep crawling yesterday is we went ahead and got a Red Cat shift servo. It didn't fit right. It was a tiny bit too long, but we were able to get it in the mount and had to use their servo mount. But hey, when you're on the trail and you break something, you got to get going. You got to do what you got to do. It seems to be the exact same strength of a Traxxas servo. I can't seem to find what kV the stock Traxxas servo is. However, this one is a 4 kV. I didn't have any problems with it. It ran just fine. It seemed just to be just as strong as a Traxxas servo. And it is a full metal gear servo. However, that servo is not going to be staying. It was a good repair while on the trail. Just wanted to show you guys that. And let's get going on the build. Alright, so here we go. I think what we're going to start with, it's a little bit the most difficult part to get to. We're going to go ahead and get that servo mount on. So let's get started with taking this servo out and getting it all loose. So one thing I forgot to mention in the intro video is Riley was putting some bigger servos on the Ripper. So I'm going to put one of the 7 kV servos in my K10 to help with these giant tires. So this servo won't be going back in. We'll put this one in the other rig that has the Red Cat servo in it. So there we go. We got it all pulled apart. Just took the whole axle out. Just get into everything a little bit easier. And then the servo mount, you just kind of got to spread it, pull it off with those little tips right there. So then we got the new one. Goes back in the same way. It helps if you put the servo mount on the right direction. Then everything would go back together really nice.
It is elongated one way.
And the longer section goes towards the front. And there we go, just like that. Servo mounts in. The links are back in. So now we'll go ahead and put it back in the car. There we go, we got everything back in place. Now, it's time to go ahead and put the shocks on because the shocks mount in the same position that these lower links do. But because I don't run springs, we're going to go ahead and take those off for the front two. There we go. Brass servo mounts in. New shocks are in. Just going to go ahead and tighten these locking rings in the upper position because we don't need them. So hopefully they don't fall down on us while we're crawling. One thing I did notice about these new shocks, everything's kind of loose. But they are really smooth. Should be perfect.
You're not brittle enough to just break. You're not brittle enough to just break. Just squishing.
While we're at it, let's go ahead and put these front shock mounts on too. So, you got to figure out which ones are for the front. So it looks like these ones have little standouts on them. Looks like that would be for the ESC mount. So those are going to go for the rear. It looks like these are for the front. Let's go ahead and get these old ones pulled off. It looks like there's two different size screws. You've got a slightly longer screw that's going to go in this back hole, and then a shorter screw that goes in this front hole. And these just kind of pinch together, pull right out. Let's take a look at these new ones, see what we got. Comes with a whole bag of new screws, and it looks like we want these beveled ones. It looks like this has a little cutout for the servo, and on here there's a little tiny divot right here that fits into. So we're going to use that beveled screw in the beveled hole. So now we got that assembled. Looks like this goes in this way. So it looks like we're going to want to loosen this bumper mount in order to spread the frame to get those in there. Oh, that looks like that fits quite well. Looks like there's a little bit of interference with this mount and that brass servo, but I mean that's completely compressed and it barely touches, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. So it does come with shock mount spacers. But it looks like we're going to need a little bit longer of a screw in order to use these. So it looks like that's going to allow for a little bit more articulation, but on this brass servo mount, it looks like it's hitting those upper links just a little bit. So that is going to be our limiter now, not the shocks. Now, as far as shock placement goes, we're going to be doing a video going over shock placement and what the different positions do for you. But I chose all the way back and all the way up because I want to keep my center of gravity as low as possible. Now we got the 7 kg servo out of the ripper. We're going to get that installed. We got the metal servo horn off of the old servo. Then we got the new servo. And what you want to do with these is you want to plug them in and center the servo. What that's going to do is make sure that when you get your new servo horn on, it's going to be in the right position. So that way you're not ended up being a tooth off. And then, just like last time, because it's a metal screw going into a metal hull, we're going to want to put a little bit of Loctite on it. And there we go. Now that we got the servo centered, we can go ahead and unplug it. We're going to slip this servo in.
It's easy without a chain.
Well, it looks like we got some clearance issues with this servo and this Mias servo mount. There's a tight fit in the old servo. So it looks like we might have to file this open just a little bit to get it to fit. Looks like it's going to be a little bit more than just a little file. So let's go ahead and get that servo mount out and see what we can do. Alright, so decided to go off camera for a minute and just see what all it was going to take to get in. So I did get it in. There was just a little bit more filing, and I did get it to seat right. So keep that in mind. If you get the Mias brass servo mount and the Injora servos, you're going to have to do some filing to get it in there. It's not much, not crazy. The other thing that I found is I had to add a spacer in here just to get this to line up right.
Can I have that Loctite? Thank you.
So now that that's done, let's get the front tires back on, and then we're going to do the rear. Alright, so now let's assemble the rear shock mounts. Now if you look at your servo or your ESC, you got the mounting hole is on the right front and the left rear. So it looks like this one's going to be the front one. This one's going to be the rear one, and then we got our mounts that take the beveled screws. Okay, there we go. We got that assembled. ESC mounting hole up front on the right. ESC mounting hole to the rear on the left. I'll go ahead and spread the frame and get this in there. Now you have different mounting locations that you can slide this ESC. It comes stock right here in the center. I'm going to go ahead and move mine to the very forward position. What that's going to do is that is going to allow for slightly more articulation. There we go. We got those mounts put in. We got the servo or the ESC slid forward. We got the servo wired in. Now let's get the shocks. And because we moved the stock location, we're going to have to play with it a little bit to see what position gives us the ride height. But what we do want is we want it on this furthest set to provide more articulation in the rear. Now we're going to put the tires back on and check our ride height. So, as you can see, we're sitting a little bit too high in the rear. So let's go ahead and move those shocks. See if we can't fix that. Now it looks like we're a little too low, so third time's a charm. Let's go for the middle hole. Yep, that seemed to do it. Looks about even on both sides. And that does give quite a bit of more articulation there. That looks really good.
Insane how far that thing moves now.
So far, I'm happy with how those 65mm shocks are working out. But we'll go get a test video and bring you back and show you what we think. Alright, so I wanted to bring you guys back. I found an issue with the rear shock mounts. When the servo was over here mounted, these shock mounts actually push the servo up. So with the high trail bed, when I put everything together, the battery plug, because of how tall it is when it sits in here, sits above the rest of them, was hitting the bed and it didn't allow enough clearance for the bed to click in. So I went ahead and relocated the ESC to the top of the motor. Now, I don't think the motor is going to get hot enough to bother that. If it does, we'll revisit it and do something else. But got the cable management done. Everything's looking real nice and tidy. So we're going to go test here in a few minutes and we'll let you know how it does. So one thing I noticed was the side hill. The side hill got a little bit worse. Not crazy, but a noticeable difference. I think that's just due to the added weight. Makes it a little bit less stable on the side hill, but the weight did help climbing. It seems to stay a little bit more planted when climbing. I think some of that's due to the articulation gains that we got, but I know adding just that little bit of front weight, that helped quite a bit. Now, as far as the articulation goes, that was huge. I mean, it gained probably over a full inch of added articulation, which when it comes to climbing, being able to articulate a little bit more, stays planted, you're going to get better grip. And it's going to help you climb. Adding to that is the faster servo. The servo is a little bit faster. It's not binding up hardly at all, even with those bigger tires on it. I think that 7 kg is plenty strong enough for what I've got going right now. I'm really happy with it. And as far as those tires go, I know that wasn't part of this build, but those 70mm 1.3 inch wheel tires are absolutely fantastic. Especially on the K10. I don't run any springs, so I've got it sitting as low as I can. I did have to trim the body a little bit, but I think it still looks okay. It didn't take away from the look of the truck at all. But man, the way those tires perform is absolutely incredible. The wheels are really heavy, helps bring those axles down. The one downside that it has is I've already broken an axle shaft. I had to replace that on the trail last weekend. So it is what it is. That's a lot of weight tumbling down a hill on those little tiny axle shafts. So those are highly, highly recommended. I have absolutely no complaints about the tires. As far as next upgrades go, I think with where it's sitting right now, it's almost time to go brushless. I think that I want to get a little smoother throttle inputs, a little bit better speed control. Right now I've got a little bit faster of a motor than I would like, but it helps with the trail speed. I think going brushless, that's going to give me the speed that I want, but it's also going to give me the smooth, slow start that I want to go with the crawler gears in the trans and the crawler gears in the diffs. So not quite ready to go brushless, so I think next is to go wider. I think I want to add some width to it to take care of the side hill. I think that's going to help quite a bit. And then I also want to add just a little bit more weight up front. And I need to do linkages. So I think we're going to do linkage, go wider, and a little bit more weight up front. And then after that, I think we're going to go ahead and go brushless. Now, the blue Bronco that's completely stock, that one I just ordered crawler gears for. So it's going to get crawler gears and a bearing kit and diff gears. So that'll probably be the next upgrade video you see. Well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And let us know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.